First of all, I want to say that this video is pretty serious for me personally. It is not just another one blah 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 weed, but mostly like a scream of my soul and a mind flow of a person ripping his back off to earn better on a daily basis since I was like 13. Let's get started. So I was born and growing up in a pretty conservative family of a post-Soviet country. Historically happened that society of the USSR generations lived in a world where being rich was possessed as something like extremely bad. Socialism was built in a way of telling people that everybody has to be equal and that rich people, like bourgeois, are the ones getting their money on the basis of rework of poor people. The time being rich was a real shame. Then the 90s have come, and I don't know how good people of the non-post-Soviet Union countries know what was happening in Ukraine or Belarus, for example, but briefly saying, that was the time when the banditry was all and the only way of doing business. Destroyed Soviet Union ended up with having lots of manufacturers, factories, big industrial complexes that were out of governmental control. And those people who were able to show their authority and to demonstrate to the others that it is better not to mess up with them were basically dictating the rules and taking control over the whole industries and the whole factories. Such a thing as brigades, that's what they will call like, appeared, and basically that were a gangs of well-armed guys who did racketing, charging money for providing the roof. In Ukrainian, we call it krysha, for protection. The business worked in a way that in case you refused to pay for this protection, for the roof, your business, whether it was a small shop or a big office, ended up just being destroyed in a fire one night. And that was the time when getting rich in any way assumed as the only goal for the real man of the streets. In the early 2000s, an approach has changed. Most of the brigade representatives ended up being killed or under the arrest. Some of them became businessmen or politicians. Anyway, the nation got over the breakdown of the USSR. Some bright examples have shown that living in a way of breaking the laws is not always a good solution, and most of the people came back to the civilized ways of earning money. But the ideal of living a rich life has still remained. People still were daydreaming of earning a great amount of money, and most of the nation still was living in a pretty poor condition. I was just like that. My parents were representatives of the most regular and noble professions. My mother was a psychologist, my father was a military officer, and they were bringing lots of usefulness to the people, but a pretty regular income was declared by the government. I was taught since my early childhood that I have to get rich one day, I have to earn the money, and that became the mindset I'm living with for like all my life. The first my job I got when I was like 13, and a horrible one where I was just distributing flyers, providing lessons on how to use the computer for the small kids, etc. And I believe I faced just everything there, from facing an abusement by grown-up drunk men in the parks on holidays, where my company was sending me to organize some small educational events, and up to the conflicts with the parents of children who were just unable to believe that a 13-year-old kid can be an adequate tutor for their children. I would not believe as well nowadays. At some point, I hated the job, and that was giving me an intoxicating feeling of freedom because of having my own money and being fully independent, and that was the best part. At the same time, my job gave me the simple principle that the more you work, is the more you earn. Of course, you can argue with me on this point, and nowadays myself can as well. But that time, my job worked exactly like that. You can take more tutoring shifts per week, and you will get more money. And I was feeling every second of my free time with this job. I was studying at the high school, sneaking out of the last lesson, like running to catch up the train, and 30 minutes after I was in the suburb teaching small children on how to do some programming or about the computer science. Sadly saying, it is fair to say that kids did not really understand why do they need it for, but I was interested in money, not their involvement. And now I understand that was bad. In the late evening, I was coming back home to do my homework, and then I was jumping out of bed at like 5:30 a.m. in the morning, and I went to the train to go to school. Was I really happy with that life? From the side, I looked like the person who lived his best. I was earning money, it was giving me some freedom, and my parents have not done it just yet. I had the chance to date with a pretty beautiful girls just because I could afford inviting them even to some sort of restaurants or cafes to buy them some presents, and I was even able to help my parents with money a little bit. But in my real life at the time, I really hated it all. There was a horrible lack of sleep. I felt migraines almost every day, and I almost had no time to do my homework, which resulted me in almost becoming a dropout. And dropout not even out of the university like it was for the Bill Gates or Steve Jobs, but even out of the high school. Finally, I have had some serious nervous breakdown a couple of times, and I left the job when I was 15, and I was preparing to enter the university that year. And that was not because I got off it, but I just switched to another job. And leaving the office of my first employee at the age of 15, I had the only mindset in my mind: the more you work, the more you earn. That literally became my mantra. Basically, I had no more than a week without the work since then. And even between switching the jobs, I have had some approaches. And also, since then, an 11-12 day working hour was fine for me. When I was 18, I first launched the first business. We've been dealing with making some websites, and in my previous job, I've been making the websites for my employee. And I have decided that why do I have to be an employee in case I can take the direct orders and get the margin. That was the first time my mindset put me down in an extremely obvious way, because I had this strong confidence that not knowing anything about running a business is completely fine. And like my hard work will do it all for me. And the stakes grew. Now I've been working 14 and 16 hours a day. And again, the story continued. It looked like I'm living the life of my dream, while in reality, I've been just literally suffering. Endless work mixed up with temporary anxiety, and myself, I was afraid of becoming bankrupt, of not being able to pay off my debts. Sometimes it actually happens. And anyway, I've always been finding the ways out. I was living a model of life which is imposed to us by motivational speakers and stories about successful ones every day. And I nailed it, but I was completely miserable. In my 21, literally like 2 days before Christmas, I have found myself standing on the rail of the balcony on the 36th floor of the office in the middle of Kiev. I don't really remember how I got there. And for me now, it all seems just like an oblivion. But I pretty clearly remember myself understanding that I looked down and thinking about jumping. And then something like just waking up from a deep dream happened to me. I went down, I sat on the snowy balcony floor, I just had the t-shirt and jeans on, and I just felt crying. And I've been like that for 2 hours. Thanks God, in the office there was nobody, because that was the Christmas rush. Nobody went there to smoke, and nobody saw me like that. But a week after, I have sold the company to a Japanese holding with a royalty leave pay, and 2 weeks after, I found a job in employment with a higher salary, with a stable work shift of 8 hours and no more. And you know what? I felt even more miserable. I felt more miserable than before. The thing is that it was just impossible not to work longer than 8 hours basically. And all the overtimes have been strictly controlled. After reaching something like a 30-minute overtime, the manager was literally expelling you from the office almost by force. And the thing happened to me that time was that instead of relaxation of not having to work long hours, I felt an extreme feeling of guiltiness. I felt miserable for not working long. And 3 months after, I left the job and went to the other one with lower salary but an ability to show myself over timing. That was my mantra, that was my point fix. And there is no need to say that several months after I overgrew the salary I had the previous job just because of the hard work, but that was weird. Now I work at a full-time job and do a lot of consulting. Basically, this takes me 6 or 7 hours after work at the same time. And parallelly, I'm running my own side hustle, like small business. And you know what? Now I'm finally happy. I do work 16, 17 hours a day, again. And my only weekend is the second half of the Sunday. But I am literally happy just because I made myself happy. The first step was just to overcome any guiltiness feelings for not working too long, for working too long, whatever. It is all about self-respect, and changing that aspect lays in changing your self-attitude. This can be reached in absolutely different ways, and you can change your wardrobe, you can get a new haircut, you can grow a beard at least. Do something that will make you respect yourself. The second key for me was about getting some self-realism. I do understand that working 2 jobs, I can miss something. I do understand that I cannot be 100% productive for 100% of the day. And also I understand that currently my life is 98% about working. But I have chosen that myself. I put the stake that way to get something better in the future. And feeling happy and miserable about that is only my choice. It's nobody else's. I decide whether I want to be happy or not. The third thing was about implementing some psychological tricks. I made my day and my week planned as literally as hell. Every single minute, every single action, every single meeting is planned. Every second of my day, I have a detailed understanding of what I do in the moment, why I do that, and what it will give me in the future, even because that's the close future. And it is not about being the guru of self-productivity, but it is about making my mind ensure that I have it all under my control and that I'm really productive. Cynically saying, it is again about avoiding guiltiness. The fourth part was about thinking of your health and look. This may sound funny from the a guy who spends like most periods of time sitting at the desktop, but I'm pretty sure that I'm able to beat most part of my peers on a CrossFit track, for example. I have 5 trainings per week, super detailed nutrition plan, a detailed sleep clock, and all the food I cook by myself on my only weekend, and I can see in details how many protein, carbohydrates, calories, etc. in every single piece of it. When it is 10:30 p.m., I go to sleep. It's a total blackout wherever my task status is. At 4:30 a.m., I'm already awake, and in the middle of the day, I always have a 15-minute nap. That might sound like a hell, but it's not for me, because that's just the only way not to turn such a schedule into a delay-activated bomb when everything goes wrong at one time, just because you've been doing wrong in small steps for a long period before. And finally, fifth, I'm a realist. I do know why I do work like that right now. I do understand what my goals are. And I really do understand why I'm, for example, not into any relationship at the moment and will not be in the next year at least, just because that is like signing a contract, but with yourself, and the stakes and benefits are identified just like that. That's the contract you sign with yourself. Summing up, does it look like I live the life of dream from the side? For me, yes, it is. Does it take me an extreme amount of work on a daily basis? It is as well. But am I miserable about that? I'm not anymore, just because I have chosen not to be so. And that is the main idea of the video. I hope you liked it. For me, it was a real revelation, and I really hope that you have found some answers to the things that were bothering you maybe. Please don't forget to like if you really like this video. Please subscribe, share your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.